Welcome to Hungry Hip Hop Potluck Style Reviews, where we dish out the freshest takes on what these artists are serving up. We're looking for the spiciest bars, vibes, and production in order to expand our palettes and diversify our playlist.
Yeah, this week we're going to be taking a look at the album RTJ4 by Run the Jewels. A little bit of quick background on Run the Jewels. It is the collaboration of the legendary Atlanta rapper Killer Mike and the Brooklyn, New York rapper LP. And seeing as this is called RTJ4, this is the fourth album that they've collaborated with under this name, although they were called Run the Jewels 1, 2, 3, and this is actually RTJ4.
I didn't even notice that.
Yeah, it's weird that they decided to do that, but Run the Jewels 3, RTJ4.
I think Killer Mike might have also had an album that was entirely produced by LP. So that was almost like a proto Run the Jewels before that.
Yeah, actually, I think you are right. Yeah.
One last thing is that I found interesting looking up a little background is they were actually introduced to each other by an executive on the Adult Swim Cartoon Network channel named Jason DeMarco. Mm-hmm. Yeah, when they were both working, both kind of doing stuff for Adult Swim, and actually there are a couple songs on here that music videos have to do with Rick and Morty and other Adult Swim shows. Mm-hmm. So the connection it's a really odd thing for a rap group to be involved with, but hey, shout out to Adult Swim. Some of the best weird stoner late night TV.
Girls.
So I guess to start us off, I thought this album was great. I thought it was fantastic. Starting with the rapping, Killer Mike always brings it with great flows and like conscious, very time prescient bars. Mm-hmm. And this is on what I think his best work so far. And while I know it's very bold, but as someone who has listened to a lot of him on features, his solo material, and the first 3 Run the Jewels records, I don't think this album could have come out at a better time. And I'm kind of singling out Killer Mike for his bars. LP is right up there with him on this album.
LP blew my mind on this project. Like all previous Run the Jewels projects, it's like LP on production, and then I'm just waiting for Killer Mike's verse. This project, I was like, dude, I'm liking them equal, some of them better. Like LP did his thing.
I feel like he shined on some songs. Like he outshined Killer Mike on a couple of these tracks.
I was thoroughly surprised.
One last preface before we do get in. This album is heavily political, and it is not subtle about it. Yes. So if you're looking to listen to a podcast that doesn't dive into politics, you're someone who says, I just want music, I don't want to deal with political thought, then this might not be the podcast for you. And frankly, this probably isn't the album.
It probably isn't an album for you. I was going to say, you should be listening to RTJ.
Right. So that's my thoughts. All the features on this were fantastic. They brought in Zach De La Rocha from the band Rage Against the Machine. Yes. Hearing him
that's
come
what
back.
He's from.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was awesome. They brought on Josh Homme, who from the band Queens of the Stone Age, who I really loved back in high school. Mm-hmm. Gangsta Boo. Just a stacked feature list that were all great.
2 Chainz.
Yeah. So I loved it. Milo, what are your thoughts coming off this album?
So this album, it was pretty solid. I think it was good and it was impressive. I personally won't be revisiting it in its entirety. It didn't connect with me on too much of an emotional level for me to want to go back to it in its entirety and like play it through. But there are some songs I added to my playlist. But as far as the technique and the production and the content, this was solid. I think this was a very good tour de force, if that's the right word. A lot of the production I really vibed with. It was very evocative of a robbery and the kind of mayhem and chaos that goes on.
I was very curious if you were going to like the production. That's why I was like very, very curious about you.
Yeah, I think there were only a few places where I just wasn't too thrilled about it. But at no point in this album was I ever like, please, let's get to the end of this song. Because the music was just so oppressive. So, but no, I think they're aptly called Run the Jewels because the production just makes me think of like when you go and you jack somebody for their stuff. A lot of the content I vibe with, there were some lines that stood out to me throughout. Like, I might have a line for, no, I don't have a line for every song, but there was a lot more lyrical content here than other albums we reviewed.
Full paragraphs, dog. Like, look out.
Yeah, I think I actually have a full paragraph here. Yeah, on Never Look Back. And the technique, the only thing that was a little bit distracting, and it wasn't so distracting that I couldn't stand it. They did sound a little too try hard in some places, like they're trying too hard to be street, too hard to be conscious, and overdoing it just a little bit, especially given their age. And I was like, okay, it's like, just chill a little bit. Like, it's cool. Like,
were there any specific tracks that like stood out to you?
Yeah, Goonies versus E.T. Loved it. I thought the cadence and their voices were on point. They weren't distracting, and I got some Kendrick vibes off of the production. So like that. So this was the one that had like that distorted voice in the background saying like "Baby, if I had another chance," etc. I don't know if this is ringing any bells.
If I had another chance, I'd take another chance with you.
Yeah. And it had that kind of distorted it just seemed like something Kendrick Lamar would do on, say, Good Kid, Mad City or To Pimp a Butterfly. So I liked Good Kid, Mad City. So I was a sucker for that. I liked the bounce in the beat. Mm-hmm. So that was a track that stood out to me. The ending track I really liked. So what I liked the most about the last track was that I could tell it was the last track by the music. Mm-hmm. Just listening to the way the music was going.
Very finale feel.
Exactly. And that's the kind of stuff Drake pulls in his production when he ends his albums, you know?
I don't know. I might think you're a Drake fan with how much you talk about Drake. Right. I mean, I know you mentioned Goonies versus E.T. He has a line where he says, "Pseudo Christians, yawn different, kids in prisons ain't a sin." Shit.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's one of the political elements about this album that I think I really did appreciate. Mm-hmm. On the one hand, it does criticize the right-wing politicians and people saying, hey, we're out here like getting killed by the police. He actually mentions "I Can't Breathe" in a song that was written 5 months before George Floyd died. Yep. But he also criticizes the left and the passivity of the black square on Instagram culture, and just saying you're going to get a Twitter rant, but that's it. That's not nothing. That's apathy. Mm-hmm. So I appreciated that this album was able to criticize both sides, the left's passivity and the right's aggression, because both of them need to step up, I feel.
Alan, you just answered my question. So when I heard the "I Can't Breathe" line, I was wondering whether he was referring to Garner or Floyd. And I was like, no, I can't be Floyd, because I mean, that literally happened like 2 weeks ago.
It's sad how relevant it is.
Yeah, it's the perfect album for this moment.
Perfect.
I really don't think this album could come out at a better time.
Yeah,
to be honest.
Yeah.
Juan, what do you think?
Okay, so I don't know why you guys are laughing.
You look so
You know
nervous.
why we're laughing. You're nervous. I could tell.
You look nervous as hell, bro. I'm nervous now. Shit.
Okay. So my take on this album is that it's the best album that I've heard in a really long time.
Oh shit.
So that wasn't nervousness. I'm just actually like incredibly excited to get into this.
Nice. That's awesome.
So I think for me, the first thing that I always am attracted to, and the thing that always grabs my attention first, is the instrumentals of music. Mm-hmm. And for this, I thought the instrumentals were amazing. Mm-hmm. Just so much deep, distorted bass throughout this entire album. I love all the filters that they put on there, like synths. I loved how powerful their drums felt. Last week, I felt like Freddie Gibbs' album. The production was layered and deep, but it almost was like too much, too often. And here I felt like the production was constantly changing. There were so many layers, but they would come in and out. They came in at moments to emphasize what the artists were saying, or they would drop right before the hooks, things like that made the songs feel incredibly dynamic and energetic in a way that I really appreciated.
I mean, LP's production is so unique. So unique.
Yeah, I thought the lyrics were great. This was like such great revolution music. And it's so exciting
right now.
Well put.
So many lines like attacking police, addressing the political division in our country, addressing histories of racism. I thought it was very well done. I thought that they both had something to say. On my first few listens, I was blown away by Killer Mike, and I was a little bit underwhelmed by LP, but I felt like LP was one of those rappers where you keep coming back to him, and suddenly you start seeing how great his flows are and how nuanced his lyrics are. Like at first I wasn't really sure, and then I kept listening and I started seeing what he was doing, and it was just it was incredible.
I've never heard LP flow like this, bro.
Yeah. I was just constantly like copying and pasting lyrics as I was listening to this.
Yeah.
I have so much here that I thought was amazing. So that was great. In terms of negatives, I thought the hooks could have been better. There's a couple of good hooks, but there was nothing. I like how like every RTJ album has a song where the hook is just them saying their name. I think that's cool. Yeah, I mean, I honestly, I'm going to struggle to pick the 2 songs for this playlist because I currently have like most of the album underlined.
Juan, did you have any favorite tracks from the album?
Just the hook was crazy on that one. Pharrell did his thing.
Yeah, he did.
I love the slave ad libs, like slave like in the background. It was so cool.
Yeah.
The ground below pulling the pin, but I don't think there was a bad track on this.
Whoever was saying, "Look at all the slaves masters pose. Look at all the slave masters posing on your dollar on out of sight," sounded like Mark. I was like,
my partner said that too.
Yeah.
That's so funny. Look at all these slaves. Yeah, that shit was lit, bro.
Mm-hmm.
Fucking RTJ4, yo. I was so stoked for this. Been waiting for it for a minute. As we mentioned in the last episode, I think RTJ or Run the Jewels 3 came out in 2016, and it really doesn't feel like that long ago.
It's been 4 years.
Bruh.
It's been 4 years.
I remember being in college, like I remember seeing perfectly. I was walking down a crosswalk, and on SoundCloud, like once you finish an album or track, whatever, it just starts playing like recommended stuff. Mm-hmm. And Blockbuster Night Part 2 started playing, and I heard that, and I was like, "Who is this? Who the hell made this song?" I found out, Run the Jewels, and that was the first time I heard of Killer Mike, like all that, because it was just such a dope song. And I've loved everything they've dropped since then. Me, All the Jewels isn't really my favorite, but other than that, everything they dropped, and they didn't disappoint, like at all. Which is wild, because when you look at the lyrics on this album, right, and then you see what's going on currently, you'd be like, naturally, oh, they're writing about this revolution going on right now. But it's so sad and cool, but like sad that they wrote all this before everything happened. And it's like, this is how inevitable it was. Eventually the riots were going to come. Eventually the mass protests. Eventually the going against cops. Like, that shows that there's been like a line of events that have been happening for years, and that people can see like, okay, like eventually this is going to get bad enough. And it's kind of what happened. But yeah, overall great production by LP. He always does his thing. I don't always like his production, but I will always admit that it's great and it's unique. And Killer Mike raps great over his beats too, so that works out perfectly. First song, Yankee and the Brave. Oh my, I thought I was being punched in the face.
Yeah.
Did anyone else feel that? Or is it just me?
It hit me hard.
No, literally, my first note for that song is "What a Wake-Up Call."
Just boom, 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 boom. I was like, Jesus Christ. And yeah, like both Killer Mike and LP killed that shit. Killer Mike has a line, or not a line, but like a bunch of lines in there where he says, "I got 1 round left, 100 cops outside. I could shoot at them or put one between my eyes. Chose the latter. It don't matter. It ain't suicide. And if the news said it was, that was a goddamn lie. I can't let the pigs kill me. I got too much pride. And I meant it when I said it never take me alive." Like, goddamn, bro. Those are the words of a fucking revolutionary. Mm-hmm. Like, that was the shit.
They let you know right off bat. We're gonna get real. We're gonna get real on this album. If you want to turn it off right now.
Same song. He has the crooked copper got the dropper. I put lead in his eye because we heard he murdered a black child, so none of us cried. Like, bro, they just, and I could do this all day, bro. They were going off.
what I appreciated, like there are so many lines about hating cops, which I thought it was great, especially in this moment, but just generally like fuck the police. I thought it was really great to hear, and especially I feel like he's so good at channeling the frustration of the people who listen to his music and providing both commentary and inspiration. Like, I think I'm given new ways of thinking about a lot of these things, but at the same time, it just fires me up to listen to.
The last line of the song, "We don't mean no harm, but we truly mean all the disrespect," is
Yes,
an excellent thesis of we're tired of this, but we're also not, but don't paint us in the way that we are looters burning down America. We're tired of this. We're speaking to you, but we're not out here trying to really be violent. We just demand respect.
I just had a question about LP. Does he work with Pharrell at all as far as producing?
So.
I don't think so.
Not that I know of.
It was just that the beat reminded me a lot of Spaz by
Nerd. Well, Pharrell does have at least a production. I don't know if he's singing credit though, but he is on the song Just.
Yeah.
So I imagine that they may have collaborated in the past.
But yeah. And so what y'all think of Ooh La La? Because that was, as far as I'm concerned, that's the only beat that wasn't produced by LP. That one was by DJ Premier.
It was my least favorite song on the album. Yeah.
I think this is where when Juan said some of the hooks could have been better.
Ooh La La.
If you remember, if you remember on Acid Rap, that Action Bronson song with the trash hook, it made me think of that. It made me think of the one song I skip on that album. It's so sad that the hook is so bad, because I think this is one of the lyrically most interesting songs. I'm going to read a passage from Killer Mike where he says, "I used to love Bruce, but living my vida loca helped me understand I'm probably more of a joker. When we usher in chaos, just know that we did it smiling. Cannibals on the island, inmates run the asylum."
Yeah.
Ooh.
Especially in light of all of the like anti-capitalist lyrics on this, to look at Batman and recognize that he's no longer the person I want to be like. He's a billionaire. He's a billionaire who's using his wealth and his success to break the law, to take the law into his own hands, to basically advocate for law and order that is destroying the kind of communities that Killer Mike represents. To be able to show that and to realize the Joker's the one who's fighting him, who's actually trying to take down this monster. And to look at that and to like side with them, I think is so interesting. It's so great in how it sounds and also in the thoughts that it presents.
100. I think you know on the spot with Batman. Everything he's attacking petty criminals and all this other shit with his billionaire status. And RTJ,
why doesn't he just pay taxes?
And RTJ, Killer Mike and whatnot, is bringing this energy of, revolutionary, and that's the Joker, creates this instability amongst, and will create chaos, For me, like, I was all with the anarchist vibes throughout this whole album, bro.
Yeah.
Like, Killer Mike, self-proclaimed anarchist, and I'm pretty sure LP probably is too then. But, everything. And actually on the same song, he says, "First of all, fuck the fucking law." Like, I was like, great way to start a verse. Perfect. Yeah. But at one point it says, "Fucking king or queen and all their little subjects. I'll put my penis out and I piss on the shoes in public." Like, bro, that's a mood, dog. Like, they walking out and you as a peasant just pissing on the king and queen shoes. Like, I do not respect your authority. I do not respect your hierarchy. I do not respect that you are more important than me. And so, yeah, I mean, those vibes were throughout the entire fucking album. So, Milo, you said Goonies versus E.T. was your favorite song? That's the song where I have the biggest amount written. And it's pretty much because, like, I wasn't even able to like take it apart because each line followed the next line. But there's one big chunk, and y'all probably know which one I'm talking about too, but there's one big chunk of Killer Mike's verse where he says, "They promise education, but really they give you tests and scores. They predict in prison population by who's scoring the lowest, and usually the lowest scores are the poorest, and they look like me. And every day on evening news, they feed you fear for free. And you so numb, you watch cops choke out a man like me until my voice goes from a shriek to a whisper, I can't breathe. And you sit there in the house on the couch and you watch it on TV. The most you give is a Twitter rant and call it a tragedy, but truly the travesty, you've been robbed of your empathy, replaced it with apathy. I wish I could magically fast forward the future so then you could face it and see how fucked up it'll be. I promise I'm honest, they coming for you the day after they coming for me. So I've listened to a lot of Killer Mike. I've listened to interviews, blah, blah, blah. And one thing that he talks about a lot is how rich white population, whatever, they'll go for, poor black slaves or whatever, but they'll go for the poor white population too. They'll go for poor whatever. They'll consume whatever they get their hands on. And so if they could attack me, they could attack you too. So instead of you defending them, recognize which side you really actually need to be on and recognize who they are actually fighting for. They are only fighting for them. They are not fighting for you. They might be attacking me right now, but trust me, they'll come for you after they're done with me too. And Alan, I know you mentioned a ton of these lines already too when you were talking.
I had a quick question. What song are these lines from?
Oh, my bad. Yeah, these were on Goonies for CT. This was Walking in the Snow. That was my bad.
Yeah, Walking in the Snow is actually my favorite song off the album, but I did have a lot of thoughts about Goonies for CT. And actually along the album does kind of have a lot of similar ideas consistently. So when Killer Mike on Walking in the Snow is talking about how the people in power are going to come and go for whether you're white or black, they're going to come for you when that time is right. And actually on Goonies vs. E.T., Killer Mike lets us in on a little bit of his perspective and who he really cares about when he says, rulers of the world will slice it up like a dinner pie. Race and a nation told you to identify. People take false pride and war incentivized. Fuck that. Me and my tribe, we on an iller vibe. We accept the role of the villain's cause, and we've been villainized. So we're putting all these things into be a good American, be someone who stands up for your country. But Killer Mike says, no, my country hasn't been willing to go out there and really sacrifice for me. I care about these black people, these poor people, everyone else in these communities that I identify with. And he's not afraid to just say, no, I'm not an American. I care about my family and those around me. That second verse in Goonies vs. E.T. is just condemning American pride in a way that I completely get behind.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I wish I could see Milo right now, looking over his shoulder, trying to make sure an FBI agent is behind him.
Going back to the lines that Mark quoted about the education system, part of me felt like there were moments where this felt like he just watched the 13th documentary and wrote lyrics about it, which I thought it could have been done a little bit more artfully. Yeah. But I still felt like the way that he keeps on bringing it back to himself, like a child who looks like me. Mm-hmm. This could have happened to me. Like that kind of feeling, I thought was a really great way of engaging the audience, of pulling them in and making them think like, you might not know who these people on the street are. You know who I am, and imagine like just in the same way that they could easily just lose their life, that they're being compromised in their education. That could be me.
Well, and actually, one thing, the way that you said it could have been said a little more artfully is actually one of the reasons that I really appreciate this album, that it is so direct. We've been trying to use metaphor in rap for all of rap, but obviously that's just going over people's head that no one's actually listening to it. So we're just going to say, no, they're going to come and kill you after they kill me.
That's a good point.
Like, yeah, if you want to hear
it's up to preference.
Black pride and much more abstract, some rap songs by Earl Sweatshirt. If you want to just get that in the most abstract
or Lupe Fiasco, if you're trying to find something interesting.
But anyways, that could piss motherfucker. Oh my! What? Please tell me not you two. Please tell me not you two, dog.
Me too. Hashtag.
Oh my God.
What is this?
Lupe is whack.
Mark and I have beef about him thinking that Lupe Fiasco
only made
is trash.
King Push. That's like, in my opinion, that's it.
That just speaks to your ignorance. All right, let's get back on track.
Milo's about to pass out. But yeah, on that same verse, and this is to Alan, what you were talking about a little bit earlier, is the most who gives a Twitter rant and call it a tragedy, but truly the travesty, you've been robbed of your empathy, replaced it with apathy. For me, that's super true. And I know I've actually spoken to a lot of you, and like, even as a Black person, like, it's sad that I actually got to the point to where I started to feel indifferent. Not feel indifferent about the murder of unarmed Black people, but more so of just like I was no longer even emotionally pulled. It was just, oh, this is normal. All right, tell me when something's about to change. Tell me when we're about to face off or do whatever. But when I first saw the link about a cop shooting an unarmed Black man or whatever, or killing an unarmed Black man, I kept scrolling. Because I see this shit all the time, nonstop on my timelines. And so I was like, okay, what's different about this one? So it is like really sad of how many times, there was a rage, there was a protest, there's all these emotions, and then I would constantly be let down. And it's just constant letdown after letdown. Constant, police getting away with murder. Which, on a side note, Spotify has a Black Lives Matter playlist or whatever.
Yeah.
And YG has 3 songs in that thing. And I sat back for a second. I was like, yo, YG is low-key politically active as hell, bro.
Oh yeah.
Especially on the day Trump got elected, I was driving to work blasting fuck Donald Trump. But even beyond that, he has a song on, I think it's still Brazy album, where he has a song called Police Get Away with Murder, and then Brown and Blacks. And on those 2 songs, he really talks about the treatment of Latinos and Blacks in LA by the police and shit like that. And yeah, so I don't know. I'll just a little side note that YG's low-key politically active. Not even low-key, he's politically active.
Well, that's why the element that I really appreciated about, when we get to Walking the Snow, I'll talk a little bit more about why it's my favorite song, but it does actually criticize the Twitter rant that you're going to watch this on the news and then you're going to call it a tragedy.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're going to be overwhelmed with apathy and we're just going to move on as a nation. And that's almost in a way the worst thing, is to just be in this cycle of, hey, someone was killed by police. Hey, there was a school shooter. This is stuff that we see and we've been desensitized to. So why are we trying to act like putting Black over your Instagram name is really going out and helping anything? That's really about making yourself feel better. Mm-hmm. And Killer Mike is saying you need to step up and be more involved, because it's not really helping when you just kind of talk on social media.
And I think this goes back to the Goonies versus E.T. line that was quoted earlier about ain't no revolution that's televised and digitized. You've been hypnotized and Twitterized by silly guys. That whole thing where we think, right? It's very easy to feel like these posts and things like that are doing something. But to recognize that, as Mark brought up, this kind of exposure can numb us and overwhelm us to the point of apathy. That's a genuine issue, that we've been overexposed in a sense, and it's been such a fast process that's led to us not caring, even though we now know the police are evil, the police are gunning down innocent people of color.
And that's why I thought the feature of having Zach De La Rocha on this album was
so
just
perfect.
That's such a great get, because Rage Against the Machine was writing songs about this in the early 90s. And people used to get really, really tired of the preachy lyrics of Rage Against the Machine. Why do they have to be yelling so much? Why is Zach always so mad? But I feel like in 2020, looking back on Bulls on Parade, that song is aged amazingly. And so having him come all the way around and be on this album just makes me think, like, what a great feature. And then eventually when he did get his own verse towards the end of the song, I was just thinking, wow, they killed it on every feature on this album.
Yeah, I was just kind of thinking about a lot of the criticism of the use of media in order to bring attention to these issues. Doesn't it strike anyone as ironic that this is a digital media that he's communicating that message through? Like, you claim that there's no revolution that's digitized, yet you went through the trouble of making an album that people would listen to on a digital medium.
I think, I get what you're saying, but for me, I think he's talking about for people who are solely posting on Twitter, solely post on Instagram, or write a song, and then that's it. Whereas as much as Killer Mike writes songs, he is a legitimate activist, especially for the city of Atlanta. He actually, what was it, like the first night of the riots, the mayor had him come up and speak. Like, that's how much he's respected in the city. The mayor had him come up and speak about, trying to calm down looting, because in Atlanta, if you're looting mainly Black businesses, because, it's like really the only Black city left. And so, he's legitimate, and so is OP and like whatnot. And so I think he's more so just talking about people who are purely thinking that digital things, music, posts, whatever, are going to start a revolution. Whereas for him, like, he's giving you the soundtrack to the revolution, but like, you need to actually be out there doing shit, talking to your local governments. If they're not listening, then start burning their shit down, like whatever.
I think it's more fair to say that he's saying that the revolution cannot only be digitized and Twitterized or whatever. That is not the revolution. The revolution is not what's happening on Twitter. But I feel like he'd probably say, as an artist, as a media influencer himself, in a sense, that this is that can be helpful, but is at the end of the day nothing on its own.
And I actually did want to address what Milo was saying earlier. There's actually a verse on the song "Just" where he actually says, "I done had to talk to myself many times. Am I a hypocrite because I know I did plenty crimes? Yes, I am. I get broke too many times and might flank some dimes." So one element of Killer Mike's politics that I really appreciate is he's willing to turn the mirror and look at himself a little bit and say, these are problems that I've contributed to, that, we're getting treated poorly by police, but also I've committed crimes. So I feel like being willing to turn the camera back on yourself is a step of really effective change, and willing to acknowledge where you've fallen short.
There's one thing I wanted to bring up. So, Walking in the Snow, right? So he has a line in this song where he says, "Never forget in the story of Jesus, the hero was killed by the state." Yeah, it's the Romans who went through with the prosecution or whatever, or persecution. And so that brings me to this point, right? So a lot of people are just discussing like whether the George Floyd incident, whether it's a race issue or just an overall general policing issue or whatever, which I would say clearly is both. It's not one or the other, it's clearly both. But in talking about the policing, I've had a lot of talks with people, and actually a couple of you, and specifically how there was a public execution. There were people around, American citizens, who saw a crime taking place and were not able to do anything about it. They saw a police murdering a human being and could not even attempt to intercede out of threat of incarceration or threat of being. And so it's kind of like and for any other person, if a crime were to be taking place, it is your duty as a citizen to intervene if possible or do what you can to stop it. But when the police do this crime, because they are sponsored by the state when it comes to funding and all that, and then they have the pre-authorization of the state to commit acts of violence, you can't do anything. At best, you could get a video recording, and once they commit their murder, maybe afterwards you could possibly get them in jail. But you can't do shit to stop the act whatsoever because they have the pre-authorization of the state to enact violence. And so that's kind of the whole anarchist ideal, and that runs throughout this entire fucking album, just nonstop. I probably almost had a line from every song where it's talking about fuck the royalty, fuck the police for doing this or whatever. It's just constant, like, if you think you have authority over me, you do not. And so I was really feeling the anarchist vibe throughout this whole album.
Oh yeah, RTJ as a whole often is very critical of religion, but they know their shit. They know what they're talking about, and I think that's what I appreciate about their critique. It's not just a really basic, simple one, like like an atheist you see online who's just trying to dismiss religion for the sake of it, but they're actually seeing the inconsistencies and the power of the narrative itself, and they're bringing that up.
And it shows even more with the fact in Goonies vs. E.T., LP said pseudo Christians, all different kids in prison, blah blah. He
That's
didn't
the
just
point.
say Christians. If he was attacking religion, he would just be like, yeah, look at all these Christians and different, blah blah. But I mean, he's saying y'all aren't real Christians if you're gonna let this happen.
Yeah.
So they critique it, but they don't necessarily like denounce it.
Yeah, and I think he says like if any of the teachings affected you,
Yeah,
realize
yeah.
we shouldn't put kids in cages.
Which is just wild that that's debatable, bro.
Yeah, it's much more of a critique in my mind of the way that right-wing politics and capitalism have infiltrated, I'll say, the majority of a Christian's understanding of their relationship with God. But when we actually read the Gospels, we see Jesus is asking everyone to lay down their possessions and follow him, which seems really anti-capitalist. Jesus is out here feeding 5,000 people with loaves of bread that he came and shared with people. So I really enjoyed that he was able to single out not just God is stupid because God is dead, but hey, the God you serve tells us we should be acting this other way. And as an American Christian myself, I've definitely felt a lot of the same frustrations with the church. And I didn't even walk away from this album thinking are both of them atheists. I more thought of them saying, wow, they had great critiques of a lot of the same feelings I hold as a person who is a Christian in America.
There's that line. Let me see if I can find it. Oh yeah, this is on The Ground Below, where Killer Mike says, "Not a holy man, but I'm moral in my perversiveness. So I support the sex workers unionizing their services."
Yeah. Yo, Juan, swear to God, I was about to quote that next. So swear to God, I saw that, bro. I thought that was, oh my God, I'm moral in my perversiveness,
Yeah,
I
that
love
is a
sex
sick
workers.
line.
That's such a great line. I love it. Like he mentions all the time, like he loves, going to strip clubs, and smoking weed, blah, 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 but I'm moral in my perversiveness. I think sex workers should be able to have a union and be protected and all this other shit. And I'm just like, bruh. Oh my God, that's a mood, bro. To like take a moral stand on an issue that isn't morally popular,
To say I'm a moral pervert is just a great thing to say.
Right?
Yeah.
Like it's not a popular thing to say or do.
One more along that line that I did have real quick was on walking in the snow. He says, "Thank God that I'm covered, the devil can smother, and the evil don't sleep." So in a way that I really appreciate it, he says, I know I'm on the right side of God, and God's prophets were always saying to act this way. Jesus acted by giving to the poor. Jesus acted in a way that you might call communist or you might call anarchist. But I know I'm on the right side of God on this one. Again, just really scathing that American kind of like capitalist Christianity that I'm not a huge fan of.
He says at one point that this is a spiritual war too. Like,
yeah,
he says it's not political,
that, right?
it's spiritual. Like, it's like he's very politically engaged and has a great understanding of the things going on in the world. But there's also this really beautiful like spirituality that he keeps like hinting at.
I don't know if you've ever seen his show on Netflix, Trigger Warning. If not, highly recommend it. Like you should go after this, go and watch it. Intense, but it's cool. But in this show, he has one episode where he talks about religion, right? And he talks about, or it might have been this episode, or it might have been an interview I heard. But when it comes to religion for him, he recognizes Christianity as the religion of the oppressors, right? That were basically forced
slave master,
Black people's throats, of the slave master. At the same time, he also recognizes the stories of Jesus and how useful they are. And I've heard him mention that specifically, how like the stories are incredibly useful and powerful. That being said, I remember him specifically saying, that why should he pray to someone who doesn't look like him? Why should he pray for someone who doesn't represent him? Why should I bow to somebody who doesn't look like me? And then after that, he was like, why should I bow to anybody at all? Why are we bowing in the first place? Why are we not just respecting each other where we're at? So he definitely has like a love for Christianity as far as I'm concerned. But like in terms of like his only focus being on Jesus or, the rules and stuff like that, not at all, I don't think.
I want to make sure we talk about the last track. I think there's a lot there.
Yeah.
First, I think both LP and Killer Mike on this song talk about the kind of the personal toll that revolutionary work has on a person. LP talks about, I woke up early once again. That's 4 straight days. I didn't wake you, baby. I just watched you lay in the radiation of the city sun. I'm in love with you. It's my only grace. I thought that was really cute. I love that. Shout out to Grace. Also, and then Killer Mike later says, friends tell her he could be a Malcolm. He could be another Martin. She told her partner, I need a husband more than I need another martyr. And both of these lines,
was the line
like in the midst of
all
the political shit that this album's talking about, is like, we're also people who are deeply concerned with our loved ones. And it made me think of the Emma Goldman quote. I don't have it exactly right, but it's something along the lines of, a revolution without dancing is no revolution at all. Right? The joy of life is the thing that drives the desire for freedom. And this song, we're given a glimpse of the toll that it's taking on them. And I think that's a really interesting way to end an album.
Your Emma Goldman quote, I really resonated with. It brings me back to the middle of the book of Exodus, after the Israelites have made it across the sea. And there's this whole biblical story of Miriam leading the Israelites in dancing. And so I had never heard that quote, but it actually resonates with me a lot more now that I've heard it. And then I almost understand that passage in Exodus a little more. A little off topic, but I definitely agree with the sentiment.
I love the literal last lyrics of the last song, where he says, this is for the do-gooders and the no-gooders, used and then abused, for the truth-tellers tied to the whipping post, left beaten, battered and bruised, for the ones whose body hung from a tree like a piece of strange fruit. Go hard. The last words to the firing squad was, fuck you too. Like, oh my God, bro, channeling the energy. Like, to me, there's not much better than that, of like, you will be abused because of your beliefs. You will be whipped, hung. They're going to hunt you down, blah, blah. And they're probably going to kill you. You might not, you're likely not going to win, because they have the power. But at the very least, you refuse to give them control. You refuse to give them your mind. And guess what? Fuck you too. Like, for me, it's the ultimate, you can't have me, even if you win, you still can't have me.
One very small thing I did appreciate in Killer Mike's last verse: God blessed me to redeem her and my thoughts and my actions. And so he's going in and talking about how his mother had put up with this kind of systematic racism for all her life, and being able to bring it back to family and the people that are important to Killer Mike kind of ties back into what you were saying, Juan, about how every revolution is going to need joy. Every revolution has a reason to fight. So I feel like bringing the album back together by talking about his mother was just really reminds us that, hey, after this album, there's still work to be done, and there's a purpose that it served other than just anger. Although it is a pretty angry album, I love that there is kind of that reason to fight, if that makes sense.
We're not just causing chaos for chaos sake, like there is a goal to all this.
So let's put this thing on the spiceometer. For me, this is very spicy. And on top of that, we talked about how perfect of an album it is for June 2020. It's spicy and it's fresh out the oven because it's timely. So pass it off to Mark.
I would also put very spicy. This captured all the energy that I kind of feel right now. And even if it wasn't right now, I feel like that's most of the time. So, love Killer Mike, love LP, love what they bring, so this gets very spicy for me.
This album was very spicy. I love this album. Definitely going to listen to it some more after this is done. Great.
So I would say this album's spicy. The production was solid. The technique and execution, they're both very adept rappers. As for the content, I always like it when an artist has something to say instead of a lot of the inane bragging that you get in rap these days. But I didn't have as deep an emotional connection with it. But I can't deny that this was an artful exercise, and they executed it well. So spicy.
Great. So as we do every week, I know that we did all enjoy this album and many, many songs on this album, but we got to narrow it down to 2 to add on to our album appetizers playlist. For me, my favorite song on the album, hands down, was Walking in the Snow. And I would also nominate Pulling the Pin as my other favorite song from this. So Walking in the Snow, Pulling the Pin. Juan, what were your 2 picks?
Mine are Pulling the Pin and Just.
Let's see. I'll do Just and A Few Good Words.
This is hard. This is hard. I'm probably gonna put. God, this is really. I'm not gonna lie. This is actually really hard for me because like they're all so dope.
It's all good.
Fuck it. I'll just go with someone. So I'm gonna pick Ooh La La. I just really love, the lyrics in it. First of all, with the fucking law, like all that. That, and then actually the first one, Yankee and the Brave, episode 4.
So would that be Just and Pulling the Pin? I think both of those got 2 votes.
Pulling the Pin,
which were also great, by far too.
Yeah, guys, honestly, on this album, you can't go wrong. I'd encourage you to listen to it top to bottom. You will not be disappointed. But we do have to limit it down. So Mark, I'll hand it off to you to introduce the album that we'll be talking about next.
So our album for our next review actually isn't a brand new album. It actually came out back in early May. It's Beyond Bulletproof by Mozzie. Mozzie's rapper out of Sacramento, a Blood gang member. So it's lots of gang talk, but not from like a external perspective, as we kind of get from Polo G a little. This is more like the internal, like, warfare, and it really sounds like war when he's rapping and whatnot. So I'm very excited to review this. Sacramento local person for me, and so it means a lot.
916.
Let's go.
All right, guys, thank you for listening.
Thank you guys, appreciate it. Hope you enjoyed.
We're out.